Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Battle. I am Michael Adams. My co-host tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King, Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame Director of Operations, Scott Crawford. We got a really good interview for you today. The most disrespected people in all of sports. We are here to show respect to them today. That is the MLB, Major League Baseball umpire. And if you don't believe that they're disrespected, just look at the game bases loaded, where the umpires' names are boo, yuck, dumb, and bum. So that says it all right there. So, like I said, we have a career interview. We are joined by a former MLB umpire from 94 to 2002. He is tied for all-time playoff series, and that includes 5 World Series that he has played, or not played in, he has conducted, been part of. In 2013, he was promoted to crew chief. He has been a part of the World Baseball Classic and 2 All-Star games. We want to welcome Ted Barrett. Ted, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate that. And I do remember Boo, Dumb, and Yuck. They were, they were some heroes of mine. I remember the video game there.
Excellent. Well, we're going to jump into our Q&A. Brian, start us out tonight.
Okay, Ted. So I understand that in your early years, you played basketball, football, and then some amateur boxing for a while. So what was it that ultimately led you to baseball and umpiring?
Yeah, growing up, I grew up outside of Buffalo, New York, in a sports town, and my dad told us early on. I had 3 brothers. My dad said, if you play a sport, you don't have to work a job. So I played every sport that you could ever think of and imagined, and played at the boys' club. And I gravitated toward football, basketball. I loved baseball. We didn't have a team in Buffalo. When I was a young man in 1979, you're a Pirates fan, and I was absolutely enthralled by the 1979 World Series and the strategy of it. And my dad introduced me to Stratomatic baseball. So I wasn't a fan of a team, but I was a fan of the players, and I followed along with them. When I was 14 years old, a buddy of mine was umpiring a Little League game, and he said, "Hey, would you come with me and umpire?" And I said, "Yeah." And umpiring is one of those things, when you do it, you either love it or you hate it. And I loved it. I thought it was great. Played football in college, and I would go to baseball games. But my dad, when I was in college, said, "All right, I know I told you don't have to get a job if you're playing a sport, but you're killing me with car insurance, gas, so you got to get a job." I had a buddy that was working at a Burger King. He said, "You don't want to do this." I had another buddy who was working at a store. So I said, "Man, I want to maybe get back into umpiring." So I started doing high school baseball games. This is the 80s, and I think I made $57 a game. So I do 3, 4 games a week. I'm outside. I love baseball. I'm like, this is awesome. My dad's happy. I've got spending money. And then the guy that I was working with, he was a minor league umpire, and he said, "You really should try this to be a professional umpire. You should go to the umpire school." I had moved to Las Vegas. I was, trying to turn pro in boxing. I was a pretty good amateur. I wasn't a very good pro. I did get to spar with a lot of guys. And my dad said, "If you want to go to the umpire school, I'll pay for it." So it was 5 weeks in Florida, as opposed to getting my rear end kicked every day in the ring. I said, "Let me try Florida." And I got a job from there, which was, there's 300 guys my year, and 14 of us got jobs. So, the odds of getting in are really tough. But that's how it all started back in 1989. I went to rookie ball in the Northwest League and worked my way up until I got called up by the American League.
All right, well, about that game, May 27th, 1994 was your very first game, Boston versus Texas. What do you remember about the game? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Were you scared? And how was the first pitch? What do you remember?
Yeah, all those emotions. Nervous, excited, scared. I remember flying there, and I said, "Man, I'm going to land," and they're going to say, "Oh, sorry, we meant to call Barnett, not Barrett. You go back to AAA." It was crazy. It was surreal. I wasn't expecting it. It came out of nowhere, and it was the first year of the Ranger Stadium, the old Ranger Stadium, which is now not the old, but the old, right? 1994, and Roger Clemens is pitching, so there's whenever he pitched, there's electricity in the air. We walk out there, walking out to home plate, and this packed stadium was different than AAA. and walked over to third base, and the whole thing, I was just like, this is just surreal. I can't believe I'm here and I'm doing this. And we had a rain delay in like the fifth inning, and Texas rain comes on. It's like I thought they were going to build an arc. Certainly in the minor leagues, we'd be done for a week, but we waited for like an hour. The field actually drains in the outfield, and so we went back out and finished the game. And I was like, wow. And then the food was unbelievable. We would get a hot dog and a beer after a game in the minor leagues, and now I'm getting a steak dinner. I'm like, this is this is a big jump from AAA to the big leagues.
Ted, as I'm sure you know, there have been only 24 perfect games in Major League Baseball's near 150-year history. You have the distinction of being the only home plate umpire in history to call two of them on July 18th, 1999 for David Cohn and June 13th, 2012 for Matt Cain. As they were both getting into the later innings, were you aware of the state of the game in that regard, potentially going perfect? And did you feel an added sense of pressure to ensure that your calls were accurate and obviously not controversial?
Yeah, I feel like I caught lightning in a bottle twice, being behind the plate for two perfect games. And I was at third base for Philip Humbers as well. So I think I'm definitely the only umpire to be a part of three, and I may be the only guy to be on the field for three. I think Joe Madden was in the dugout for three. But yeah, you think about the history of baseball, and that's such a rare occurrence. Yeah, to answer your question, when David Cohn had his perfect game going, we actually had a rain delay after the third inning. And, the starter never comes back out. But I was like, we got to make this quick because he's got a perfect game going. I was joking, 3 innings. Mm-hmm. He comes back out, and he's pitching again. This is great. As we got into the later innings, I looked up at the board at one point, and I saw 0 hits. And I saw he was facing the minimum, but I was like, did he have a walk and a double play? Because you get locked into a game, and you kind of forget what happened before, and it's just one pitch at a time. But I knew there's a no-hitter going. And then when it was over, I said, was that a perfect game? They said, yeah. And now with Cain's, his stuff was great. Like the 4th inning, I was like, man, I don't know if anybody's going to hit him tonight. And I knew the perfect game was going on. But in both instances, there is a tremendous amount of pressure. And if you look at the 90s, the way we called balls and strikes was different than the way it's done in 2025, even 2012 with Matt Cain. The goal was, we would set our strike zone from the first pitch and try to remain consistent. And that was what a good umpire was. He called his zone and he called it consistently. Now it's changed to you have to call one zone and be completely accurate. So the pressure in my mind then was, I just want to stay consistent. I want to call the same strike that I've been calling all day. I want to call the same ball that I've been calling all day and just be consistent. You don't want to be the story. You don't want to, make a strike call that was a ball because people say, well, he didn't deserve this. And you certainly don't want to call a ball on a strike that costs him a perfect game, either a walk or getting behind on the count. So there is that pressure. But it's funny because it's not just the umpires that feel the pressure. It's all the players. There's just like this tension on the field and in the dugouts and in the bat boys and everybody. Everybody knows what's going on, but nobody says it. And so, yeah, it's very interesting when that happens and as it develops. And I've been a part of a lot of games where guys had good stuff. They get into the 7th, 8th inning and they lose it. It's like, you feel bad for them because they're so close. But on this day, and both games, I can look at unbelievable defensive plays that happened. So I really feel like all the stars have to align. Everything has to be right to get a perfect game. And the way things are going now with the way pitchers and pitch counts, will we ever have a perfect game thrown again? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough to say. So, you were the umpire for so many big games. All-Star games, Division Series, Championship Series, World Series, World Baseball Classics, and of course those perfect games I just mentioned. In your opinion, which game would you say stands out above them all as the greatest one that you ever called?
Wow, as far as an individual game would be tough to say. I think I worked the 2011 World Series that went 7 games between the Cardinals and the Rangers. And that game 6 was unbelievable with the back and forth. They're down to the last strike, and David Freese, I think it was, right? He hits a homer, and then I think Josh Hamilton hit one at the top of the inning, and then the Cardinals are down to the last strike again, and they hit another one. And I can't remember all the particulars, but I just remember the back and forth. And I just remember us looking at each other going, this is pretty cool. And at one point, Josh Hamilton was running out to center field, and he ran by me, stopped. He looked at me and goes, isn't this awesome? So even when the players recognize in the middle of it, because a lot of times we get through a game and, you're just, again, so locked in. It isn't until after you sit back and go, wow, we just saw something pretty cool. That one would stand out. But for me personally, special meaning was in 2018, I was the crew chief for the All-Star game in Washington, D.C., and standing out there at home plate, working with a lot of guys that were my friends that I had come up with. And that was very special. I always loved All-Star games in baseball because, I'd watch it on TV, and I just thought it was really cool, especially when the players are wearing their own uniform, which, I hope they get back to. And so then to stand out there and go, man, I'm working home plate in an All-Star game. This is really special.
Hey, speaking of one of the games you'll remember, April 24th, 2005, between Boston and Tampa Bay, there was a brawl. You tossed out Trot Nixon and DeJuan Brazelton. In a baseball brawl like that, as umpires, how do you decide what to do, like when to step in to try to stop it, who to throw out of the game? You only pick 2 guys that day. Like, how do you sit back and watch it for a while and try to figure things out, or what does an umpire crew do during a baseball brawl?
Well, I've got a lot of friends that are NHL officials, and I see you've got that Canada jersey in the background. I think the way hockey does it is the best. Just you guys go at it, and then the linesman will jump in while the referees kind of stand back, right? I think that's what we should do. Let the players fight it out, and then we'll pick a couple of umpires to get in there and intervene. But for me, when there's a fight or dugout's empty or the bullpen's empty, which is crazy. Why don't you guys just fight out there? You guys all run in here. But it's like a powder keg, like something's going to blow. So you've got to try to diffuse it as fast as you can. So we try to get to the guys that are the ones that are going after each other, try to get between them, try to get that squashed before everybody else starts joining in. And if you can't do that, you try to keep it, keep the fire, into a small area. And then once it's over, we get together as the umpires, all 4 of us. When it's going on, you're always observing, okay, who's the combatant? Who's the guy that's really pushing this? Who are the guys that are trying to be the peacemakers, which is really the coach's job to try to get everybody back and help you. And then we say, all right, these 2 guys were fighting. These guys were too. We take all the information. You try to make it even, like a couple guys from their team, couple guys from their team. But there's things we can do in baseball. I think they can do the better. We can maybe go to replay. We can have them go back and look because we can't see everything that's going on the field. But you just try to get the people that were the main combatants and get them out of there. And a lot of times it's the pitcher that hit the hitter. The hitter's the one that was angry. They fought. It's usually the 2 of them, which I think happened in that game. Sometimes the other guys are pushing and shoving. That's not a big deal. But if you get a guy that took a shot at somebody or took a swing at somebody, he's got to go. And then usually there's one guy that just is mouthing off. He just won't stop mouthing off. And you just tell him, hey, get back to the dugout, knock it off. And if he doesn't, you get rid of him too.
So we'll get back to some baseball questions here in a few minutes. I want to discuss your dissertation, and I'm halfway through it. It is a fantastic read called An Investigation of Faith as a Life Principle in the Lives of Major League Umpires. So let's just start with this. What made you choose this as your topic for a thesis?
Well, first of all, thank you for reading through it. I always tell people it's a cure for insomnia. But to a baseball fan, I think you'd find it interesting. And it gives a little glimpse of the umpire lifestyle, right? When I came up, baseball's hard to practice your faith in because it's Sunday day games. You can't go to church. Even during the week, we've got games every night. And what we really tried to do with the umpires was to create a faith-based community and really a support network. A lot of guys got caught up in a lot of the negative behavior that comes from life on the road, and we just tried to number one, help each other and support each other, but also the guys that have, the older ones that have gone through the mistakes, with marriages, with children's, with addiction, with things like that. We can help the younger guys and try to keep them from going into that. So I really wanted to look into the lifestyle, look into some of the, the amount of pressure on the job is unbelievable. And then some of the ways the guys cope it with that, both healthy and unhealthy, and just try to make the profession better. That's why I chose that. I thought it would be a good thing for all the umpire community to learn from mistakes. And, that's one thing we do really well as umpires. We learn from our mistakes. The rules that I know the best are the ones that I messed up. When you miss a play, you figure out why. One thing I found in our survey, I think you're reading the dissertation, is that the divorce rate is really high, higher than the national average. But second marriages are really strong, a lot lower than the national average. And I say it's because umpires learn from their mistakes. And so a lot of cool things in there. And so I did the survey. There's 68 at the time, 68 major league umpires, which is now 76, which we expanded with replay. I removed myself. So out of 67 people that I put the survey out to, I had 37 respond. So I think I had a good cross-reference of younger umpires and older umpires, and we're very open in sharing their experiences.
So in it, you discuss that an umpire basically has to be perfect, or he's gonna hear about it. Being perfect, their job, their scrutiny, every pitch. If somebody doesn't like the call, and as you said, it leads to many causes. Many to drink, mental health issues, divorce, all kinds of things. Some of them, use their faith to avoid these. How did you use your faith in your umpiring journey?
Yeah, it's just life on the road for a man. There's so many temptations, and so just as someone that reads the Bible, being a Jesus follower, it's like, all right, how do we handle temptation? How do we stay above that? How do we avoid that? And also just recognizing, putting in safeguards, putting in practices of making sure that you don't fall in that behavior, having some accountability with another guy, another umpire. Like, hey, I know what you're going through. How are you handling it? And then we call it being cavemen, because we have guys that can start going into a depression mode, and hey, let's pull them out of the cave. Let's get them. Let's grab them. So we'll have Zoom calls. We'll do studies together. We'll do prayer calls, things like that. And then if a guy's been absent for a while, hey, let's find out what's going on. Where are you at? And so that really helped me, as I had people walk through it with me. And so that's what I wanted to do with other guys. And yeah, we've got a great faith community of umpires. And again, it's expanded out to the hockey referees and the NBA referees and a little bit to the football guys. But I think we all share that common pressure of being perfect. It's a game of failure. Now that I'm retired, I talk to the players a lot more about that. Here in spring training, we had some Bible studies, and just the amount of pressure they're under just to make the team. And then when you get to the big leagues, to stay on the team, and then, signing a huge contract. And now how do you perform? The amount of pressure is really hard to imagine unless you're going through it. So how do we handle that, and how do we cope with that?
So last question about your dissertation here. So kind of like a quote from it is, umpires are chasing the dream with the odds of failure so high, basically, to be an umpire. So with all the possibilities of things that can go wrong, and you've obviously just discussed some of them, the sobriety, the mental health, etc. Looking back on your career and maybe some of the other people's careers, is it worth it for someone to try and go into this profession, or can it mess them up for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, there's certainly that danger, and I've seen it happen on rare occasions where guys have fallen into mental health problems that they couldn't get out of. But by and large, to chase that dream and achieve it and become a major league umpire, it's incredible. And then to go out and run a ball game, I used to have to pinch myself sometimes on a warm Midwest night, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I get paid to do this. This is unbelievable. So a lot of it's perspective too. The other thing is a lot of times you start feeling sorry for yourself because you're missing home, you're missing little league games, and you're like, man, why do I do this? And then you just go by, on the way to the ballpark, we would see someone working in the street, some guys down in the sewer, or, someone's working their tail off. And man, it's like, man, we are really fortunate to have this job, because there's a whole lot of people that have it a lot worse than us. And so perspective piece, everybody has problems. Guys in the military, right? We cry because we're away from home for 2 months. There's people that deploy and they're gone for a year. So a lot of it is just trying to keep your perspective. And then for me, I always felt like I was on mission. I wanted to make the profession better. I wanted to make the game better. I wanted to be someone that lifted people up. I wanted to be someone that's a peacemaker that brings, there's players, there's umpires, there's coaches, there's managers, and it's like cats and dogs, right? If we're fighting, I wanted to be someone, hey, let's be professional with each other. Let's get along and let's have fun, because this is a kid's game. How do you make millions of dollars a year to play a game and you're miserable? And as umpires, we're not making millions of dollars, but we're making a good salary and you're not happy. It's like, man, you've got the greatest job in the world. Now, one thing that I think, as you read in my dissertation, social media wasn't as prevalent as it is today. And I think that's causing a lot of problems, because, someone would send me a clip or, and I'm reading, hey, here's a play that I had. And then let me read the comments, which is a mistake. So the first few comments, oh, this umpire is great. Yeah, it looks good. And then you go down about the fourth, fifth comment, and there ain't nothing good there. It's like
Trolls.
Ted Barrett's terrible. He's the worst umpire I've ever seen. And it's like, wow, okay. You have to develop this superpower of not caring what people say or do or think on social media, because it is nasty, as you know. I mean, you see it. I'm sure people criticize you. They watch your show and you'll have a few people going, man, this was awesome. This was great. What a great interviewer. And then you start getting down into it and it's like, don't read that.
Sometimes I just shut the comments off.
Go ahead, Scott.
Very good. All right. One of our Baseball Hall of Famers up here in Canada is umpire Jim McKeen, who umpired from 1974 to 2001. In 2002, he accepted a position as supervisor of umpires with the commissioner's office. A couple questions. Did you ever get to umpire with Jim? I know him a little bit because we inducted him in the Hall of Fame in 2004. But did you get to umpire with him? What type of guy was he like to work with on the field, or even from the commissioner's office? Might be obviously a different angle, as well as supervising everyone.
Yeah, so working with him on the field, it was great, because Jim had a great sense of humor, and he kept things light. When I came up to the American League, there was 8 crew chiefs, and Jim was one of them. And so I was my first few years, I would rove around to different crews, and I always enjoyed going to Jim's crew just because he was always joking. He was always in a jovial mood, which is great because, it breaks it up when you're a young guy and you're nervous and you're trying to do your best. He's putting you at ease. He liked to have fun off the field. He had played in the CFL, as you know, and so I just had a million questions about that. Growing up in Buffalo, I would get the Hamilton station or the Toronto station and watching the CFL. I loved it. Couldn't understand it a lot of times, but I learned as I went. And so just Jim, talking to him about the stories of him playing and then him getting into umpiring. And he was fun to be around. Then he became a supervisor. It was the same thing. He'd come in the locker room, usually in Tampa, because he had moved down there, and just telling stories and laughing. He never took things too seriously, which I really appreciate. And when he passed, it was very sad. But one of his boys got into law enforcement, and he works closely with the Tampa team. So I would see him at the ballpark sometimes, and it was. I have good memories thinking of Jim.
Yeah, no, exactly what he was like. You said he had a good time when he was up here in 2004, and he was the life of the party, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Ted, kind of a fun question here. I mean, you were at the major league level for nearly 30 years. Very impressive. Yet over that span of time, I'm sure that more than a few big league managers, made their way out of the dugout to angrily, protest the call. So, which managers could you tell us were maybe the nastiest? And do you have any funny stories about tossing a guy from the game?
Yeah, I have a lot of ejections of Lou Piniella, and with Bobby Cox, I actually gave him the record for breaking John McGraw's record for ejections by a manager. But both of those guys, I love them a lot, and the umpires respected them, both of them, a lot, because they would come out, they would get ejected, but man, they were old school. The next day, it was like nothing happened. It was like a new day. I always respected that about them. Even with Bobby Cox, he would go out of his way to make sure, hey, good job there, sticking up for my player, which we all respect. I'd rather throw out Bobby Cox than Chipper Jones, so because people pay to watch Chipper play, and so I respect when a manager keeps his player in the game, even if I have to eject him. Funny stories. I remember Jim Tracy was managing the Dodgers, and I was working home plate. Had a play at the plate. Paul LaDuca thought he was out. I called him safe. He was upset. He started to give me a little grief. Tracy came out of the dugout. He got LaDuca away and said a few words, went back to the dugout. And then a couple innings later, as happens in baseball, same thing. Play at the plate. LaDuca thought he was out. I called him safe. And Jim Tracy came flying out of there like a rocket. And he's like, don't throw him out. I don't have a backup catcher. So he gets there and he says, Ted, and he's waving his arms. He's being demonstrative. And he said, from my angle in the dugout, I could see both plays. You got them both right, but I can't let my catcher get thrown out. So I got to get thrown out. And so I throw him out of the game. And he's like, great job. Good call. Have a good night. And of course, the crowd thinks he's giving it to me. And he turns to go back to the dugout. He goes to kick chalk on me from the third baseline. And he jams his toe and he hobbles into the dugout. So the next day he comes hobbling up to home plate and with a pretty good limp. And he goes, well, that's what I get, Ted, trying to kick chalk on you. I broke my big toe. And I was like, well, that's what you get for trying to kick dirt on me. So avoid that next time. But those type of things really happen. Another time, Terry Collins was managing the Angels, and he came out yelling and screaming, had to get ejected. And he was ranting and raving. He said, man, my players can't hit. My bullpen can't get anybody out. My third base coach thinks he's the manager. The food's terrible. And he's going on. I was like, hey, man, Terry, pull up a couch, lay down. Let's do a counseling session here. But as he's doing this, he's yelling. And of course, everybody thinks that he's really giving it to me. And at one point, I start to smile because it's just so funny. And he gets in my face. He says, don't you smile. Don't you smile. They'll know what I'm doing if you're smiling. So he said, I'm going to throw my hat. You're going to eject me. So he throws his hat down. I eject him. And again, have a good evening. I'll see you tomorrow. So sometimes it's the show. Sometimes they're blowing off steam. Sometimes they're really angry and it's not a show and it gets pretty heated. But, again, reading from Proverbs, a soft word turns away anger sometimes. So I would try to bring it down and, bring some peace into the game. And there's times also, though, I got really angry as well. And I went right back at him. Sometimes it feels good to get that off your chest. But I think the better way is to stay above the fray and let them vent a little bit. And usually then they're good after that.
So my final question here, and then we'll finish with Scott. But 2013, you got promoted to crew chief. I've always kind of wondered, how does that work? Is it based on managers' ratings of you? Do you have to interview for it? What goes into that decision? And did you enjoy becoming a crew chief?
Yeah, so there's crew chief is it's a little bit of a different animal of just being an umpire because now you have to manage the crew. You're responsible for everything. Yes, you are the go-between with the manager. You're part teacher, and yet you're still doing the same job. And then off the field too, you're kind of the father figure or the big brother figure and helping them through life. So I really enjoyed that because, you know, as you read, that's kind of the way I'm built. But before you become a crew chief, you're the two man on a crew. So when the crew chief goes on vacation or you get moved over somewhere, you actually kind of get a trial run as a crew chief. So by the time you're hired, they've already seen you in action on how you handle things. And so it's a high honor. There's only there's 19 crews in the major leagues, and so there's 19 crew chiefs. And at the time, there was only 17. So, yeah, it was definitely something that I enjoyed. I enjoy being a teacher. I enjoy being a little bit of a mentor. And what happened is all the older guys, the crew chiefs that poured into me, took that and poured that into my young guys. And now some of them are crew chiefs, which is really cool. Alfonso Marquez was with me for a lot of years. He's a crew chief. Lance Barksdale, they're running their own crews and doing a better job than I did. But I take pride in the fact that maybe I was a part of teaching them that.
All right, Ted, my last question here, and I see the answer might be behind you in your cabinets there, but you got some baseballs and some bobbleheads and whatnot. Did you, like as an umpire, did you collect things as you're going on, like get players to sign balls, you know, just ask players for a bat? Like I know probably obviously not during the game, but obviously after the games or after a series is over. Like what's your favorite item maybe that's sitting behind you on your shelves?
So those baseballs behind me, the cool thing is they're all autographed, but very rarely by a player. Because a lot of times the proximity of our locker rooms would be as the national anthem was going on. So a lot of singers, a lot of entertainers. I have some great autographs of them. Guys throwing out the first pitch. You know, like you're in Canada, in Toronto. One time Wayne Gretzky came in the locker room. It's like, okay, you got to sign a baseball for me. I mean, you're Wayne Gretzky. Snoop Dogg was there. Dan Marino, Roger Staubach. I mean, it's a who's who of people that I don't get starstruck much, you know, because I'm out there with players. But sometimes it's like, oh, holy cow, that's, you know, Evander Holyfield in Atlanta. I mean, these type of people are around, and so I would always try to get a baseball signed by them. So most of my signatures are not baseball players, but I do have some like Ken Griffey Jr., Bo Jackson. When I first came up, I like to show my grandkids, hey, I umpired these guys, and they actually signed the ball. We try not to do it too much because, you know, the players, they don't want to be signing stuff for us. And then there's also the perception of favoritism and things like that. But if there's a charity that I support and I can get access to that. Last year in Buffalo, there was a church that was raising some money, and I just reached out to the Yankees and asked them, and they were kind enough to send me a Giancarlo Stanton ball. And, you know, if I can help out a charity and use any influence that I have, that's great. They do allow us, if our kids would like something, you know, you put in a request with the team and go through proper channels. And so on occasion, my son would ask, you know, if there's, you know, it's funny because my son at a spring training game, he was a big Alfonso Soriano fan. So I took him, we went down to the locker room before the game, and he wanted to meet him, and then Alfonso signed a ball for him. Well, he gave a ball to his classmate, and I was like, hey, you're not going to get a bunch of these, so you just gave it away. You don't get another one. He was like, no, Dad, I got to meet him. That's even better. So I gave my friend the ball, and I was like, all right, doing something good as a dad when he does that. So, yeah, just being able to make a day for a kid would be good. I guess my favorite signature back there, I've got some presidents that signed baseballs. I've got Bush Sr. I met him in Houston, the younger Bush in Texas. Biden was the vice president. We saw him in Philadelphia, Obama in D.C. So I've got some presidential signatures on baseballs, and I wonder if they're worth anything.
You never know.
Something, but it sounds like a good keepsake for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that was fantastic. Great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us, Ted.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Remind everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification buttons. Always important to every show you watch. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time. Have a great night.